Hello and welcome. My name is Dumlu Timuralp. I'm a senior systems engineer within VMware Networking Security Business Unit. In this video, I would like to demonstrate how VMware implements security controls within the hypervisor layer. And more important than that, how easy it is to insert security controls into an existing virtualized infrastructure. The approach VMware takes is leveraging the existing NSX hypervisor and implementing a stateful firewall in that hypervisor. Attacks are almost always targeted on guest OS virtual machine. For instance, if this was a web application virtual machine, attacker could compromise this VM by identifying a web vulnerability and use privilege escalation in the guest OS and then laterally move across the data center. The difference with VMware's approach is security controls are abstracted from both the guest OS, the virtual machine, and also from the underlying infrastructure. We call this protecting the protector. The enforcement point in this architecture is automatically isolated from the attack surface, which is the applications running in guest OSs, virtual machines. The exact enforcement point here in this solution is the virtual NIC of the VM. So this approach does not rely on any kind of port group or specific config on the virtual switch or physical switch, or any kind of network implementation such as VLANs or VXLANs, or any kind of agent on the guest OS. It is totally abstracted from the underlying physical or virtual switching configuration. Hence, it is really easy to introduce this solution into the existing infrastructure. Since this solution can be implemented per ESX cluster, you can easily address the security concerns on a specific part in your infrastructure and experience the benefits of being able to secure your most critical assets right away without having to go through a huge re-architecture investment process. Today, I will demonstrate that to you. Before doing so, let me briefly explain the installation steps of this solution. First, the management plane component of this solution, also known as NSX Manager, is deployed from an OVA file, just like any other VM in the infrastructure. Then NSX Manager is registered to the vCenter. Both of these steps are out-of-band management related processes and are completely non-disruptive to the infrastructure. The last step is to install the NSX VIPs to the ESX hosts in the cluster. The overall picture looks something like this shown here. In our demo environment, we have a Windows 2012 virtual machine connected to a port group on virtual switch. This is a VLAN based environment. There is no overlay networking configured. I'm going to install NSX Distributed Firewall on this ESX cluster without changing any network configuration on the virtual switch or the physical switch. NSX is a platform, not a point product. Hence, it is important to emphasize that there are various third-party solutions that can integrate into this platform. Even when those solutions are integrated into this architecture, there is no need to change any configuration on the networking side. NSX can seamlessly insert those additional solutions as inline functions sitting in the data path. On this slide, you can see that various solutions are already supported as technology partners. So without further ado, let me jump onto the demo. Right, in this demo environment, we have three clusters. The one we are going to focus on is COMP02. On this cluster, there are no NSX bits installed. This cluster has a single ESX host on it, and there is this Windows 2012 VM that I showed in the previous slide running on the CSXi host. As you can see, Windows 2012 has an IP address. It is connected to this port group, which is a VLAN based port group, so there is no overlay networking or VXLAN configuration applied onto this cluster at all. So the default gateway of this VM is on a physical layer 3 switch in the infrastructure. So let me switch to the console of that VM. As you can see, it has the IP address and the default gateway configured already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start downloading a test file from the internet on this Windows 2012 virtual machine, and I'm also going to start an ICMP traffic from the control center, from the jump VM to this Windows 2012 virtual machine. So meanwhile, I'm also going to instantiate the NSX installation onto that ESX host in that comp02 cluster. As you can see, comp02 cluster does not have NSX bits installed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the NSX bits onto this cluster. What's going to happen is it is going to install NSX Distributed Firewall, NSX security controls onto the virtual NIC of that VM running on this ESX host. So let's see how this affects the traffic that is coming ingress and going egress on that VM. As you can see, installation already started. NSX and vCenter pushes some additional microcodes which are called vSphere installation bundle files onto that ESX host, and in the meanwhile let's see how the file download progresses, and also let's see the ICMP traffic here. So again, this process is about installing NSX onto a ESX cluster and still running live workloads on that cluster, and the idea is to show you how easy it is to insert NSX security controls on an existing cluster with an existing VLAN based configuration on both the virtual switching layer and also the physical switching layer. The installation still progresses. You can also refresh the GUI, and as you can see, the installation completed. And let's see how this installation affected our HTTP based file download. As you can see, file download still goes on, and as you can see, we have lost a single ICMP ping traffic during this installation. Okay, let me show you the firewall rules configured on that virtual NIC now. As you can see, there are 3 rules that comes by default with NSX. These 3 rules at the bottom you see in the default section allow any kind of traffic. So I have a pre-configured rule here for Windows 2012. So I'm basically blocking all the ICMP traffic that is destined to this Windows 2012 virtual machine. So what I would like to do now is I am going to instantiate ICMP traffic towards this Windows 2012 virtual machine, and then I'm going to enable this firewall rule which is going to be applied to that Windows 2012 virtual machine's virtual NIC. So I click on publish changes, and let's see how the ICMP traffic reacts to this. As you can see, it happened quite fast, and the traffic is getting blocked now. If you would like to go further and examine this from the CLI, you can SSH into the NSX manager, and you can query the ESX host itself and filter the firewall set which is applied to the virtual NIC of that VM. So first we find the domain ID of that cluster, which is domain C265, the cluster that I've just installed NSX bits, and then on the ESXi host I issue this command, show dfw host host-32 summarize dv filter, and then as you can see there is the VM kernel NIC interfaces of the ESXi host, and then there is the Windows 2012 virtual machine. So I can use the same command, but this time with filter keyword, and then when you copy and paste this filter ID, this will show this filter ID's content, and as you can see both the 3 default firewall rules and the additional firewall rule that I just configured on this virtual machine. So what this means is it is really easy to insert NSX security controls, NSX Distributed Firewall into an existing VLAN based infrastructure without changing anything in your ESX virtual domain or your physical compute or physical networking domain. Thanks for watching.